Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Activist Lawyer. We bring you a special episode. I'm delighted to be joined by this guest. We've been speaking on and off for a couple of weeks now, and it's truly an honour to have her here. And I hope you take as much out of this podcast as I did. I learned so much that I thought I knew about what's happening in this country, but she really provides us with excellent insight. And this podcast is really a call to action for the legal community not to ignore what's happening to women and girls in Afghanistan, which is going to be our topic today. So just by way of introduction, Maryam, who I speak with, is a human rights defender from Afghanistan who works to address gender apartheid within her country. So the Taliban, as we know, took over again in 2021, and since then, August 2021, has systematically annihilated women's rights and stopped women and girls from accessing education. Maryam does everything she can, in very difficult circumstances, I might add, to keep the flame of hope burning for all women and girls in her country. She also has a voice on the global stage, holding the world to account for failing to take enough adequate measures to halt the gender-fueled atrocities that are happening every day and getting progressively worse. She is very clear that all of us have a responsibility to do something about the situation in Afghanistan, and if we fail, then this could set a precedent for other women around the world. Her messages are for governments, policymakers, politicians, other activists, all women and their allies. In fact, everyone who cares what happens to their fellow human beings and wants to stop gendered violence in its tracks. Maryam's professional career was unfortunately cut short when the Taliban took over. However, she has continued to fight, in turn both speaking out and taking practical measures to support other women and girls. She refuses to remain silent as a protest against the fact that so many women and girls are oppressed and now simply too terrified to speak out. She does this at great personal risk and is all too aware of the dangers that she faces. So currently she's an online educator, a mental health counsellor, a journalist, a fantastic journalist, and a writer, and of course a very prominent and strong women's rights activist. It's a pleasure to have her join me, and I hope you feel the same. Thank you. So thank you everybody for joining me on today's episode of Activist Lawyer. I am delighted to be joined by Maryam. We're here via Zoom. Maryam, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here and talk to you.
Not at all. We've had a chat before, so we had a little introduction a number of weeks ago, and it's been so lovely to stay in touch with you. And today we're going to talk about your journey as well, and also the activism and the fantastic work that you and your colleagues have been doing. And we're going to touch on a number of areas that you're working on, and you're going to take us through some of those really important issues. Can we firstly talk about and inform our listeners about your journey in law, right up until what happened in August 2021 when the Taliban took over?
Thank you so much. That's a great question to start with. I graduated from law faculty in 2020, and then I started to work in the court as a trainee, and I was hoping, and I was on the verge of qualifying to be a lawyer right in the week before the former government of Afghanistan collapsed. And after that, that I couldn't receive my qualification document, and I couldn't practice as a lawyer, as the regime banned all female lawyers to renew their license, and that no woman is allowed to work outside in the current situation under this regime of Taliban.
Yeah, I mean, it's harrowing reading the accounts of people who were in a similar situation as yourself. But many women have continued to work in some respect and have tried their best to pursue their career and their dreams, to work as a lawyer in spite of these significant challenges and these restrictions. How have you continued to do this?
Being a lawyer is to do advocacy for justice, for defending someone, for to help them. But as I mentioned in my the first question when I answered, after the new regime took over the country, in one of their restrictions, they banned all female lawyers from working and practicing as a lawyer, and me as a thousands of other female lawyers, we cannot work as a lawyer, and we cannot defend any victim in the victim or any cases in the court like it was before.
Yeah.
But I believe that I do the advocacy, but not in the court for every case. But I do the advocacy for all women and girls in my country, because I believe that is the meaning of being a lawyer and doing our job.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the time that my people and women and girls in Afghanistan need our support and our advocacy for their rights, and for the right to freedom and living.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there's many areas that you have been active on, and that you've spoken on, and that you've written on and conducted research on, that is valuable to anybody who's not in Afghanistan but looking on as to what's happening. So your work is very well documented and very much appreciated within the international community. But just to focus on a few of those areas, if we may, looking back in time, I guess the darkest time for women and girls in Afghanistan was during the Taliban rule between 1996 right up until 2021, which saw the deprivation of women's rights in an extreme sense. And since the Taliban's recent takeover again, which we mentioned, August 2021, they had professed a transformation, that they would assert respect for women's rights. But we know that within a month of capturing Kabul, they had issued a decree barring girls from education beyond sixth grade. And of course, this cast doubt on anything that they had professed. And we're now witnessing an attempt to totally eradicate women from all aspects of life. So the first thing that we might look at is the issue of gender apartheid, which is something that you have spoken on previously, and that women and activists, not only in Afghanistan, but within the diaspora, are calling for recognition. So in terms of gender apartheid, what does this mean, and what does this mean for the women and girls in Afghanistan?
Well, as you mentioned, after the Taliban took over in the country, then they systematically and they gradually restricted women from their daily life, from the public life. And today, imagine that a woman cannot go out without a man. Women are not allowed to go to university, to schools. There is no place and spaces for women to have entertainment. For example, going to parks, restaurants, gyms, beauty salons, and everywhere is banned to them. And if we, in terms of gender apartheid, as you mentioned, gender apartheid is not recognized in the international law and international criminal law, but we have racial apartheid, and we have the crime apartheid in the convention. In the Apartheid Convention and the Rumi Statute, and it can describe as a three elements, which is the dominance of one group and one racial group over another, also a systematic oppression of one racial group over another. Also, the last one is inhuman acts. And if we see and we can see all these three elements in Afghanistan. That is happening against women and girls, because it just needs to change the word racial to the gender. And after that, we can see, yes, it's completely matched to the situation that women and girls are experiencing, and it must be recognized under the crimes against humanity, the crime that is happening against women in Afghanistan. And this is why that all women's rights activists inside and outside of Afghanistan and diaspora, and international lawyers and human rights organizations, they are working to that gender apartheid gets recognized. And we demand to stop it in Afghanistan and take the regime and their leaders accountable for the crimes that they committed in Afghanistan against women.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit later just about the reaction of the international community and what's being done. But firstly, looking at the women and the girls in Afghanistan, I suppose because of the severe restrictions that are impacting every facet of a woman's life, it's no surprise that mental health issues among women and girls are on the rise. And because women can't work or take part in education, let alone attend, social events, I know that salons have all been closed, which were a very important part of some women's lives in terms of interacting with other women and chatting. That's all gone now. And women are therefore maybe seen as a burden sometimes on their families and are experiencing abuse within the home, within a kind of a deepening crisis. How is this being addressed? I know mental health is something that you have been exploring recently and that you're quite vocal on. How is it impacting women and what's being done?
Thank you for asking this question, which is a very important issue to nowadays in Afghanistan. As I can say that cruel and inhuman restrictions on women happen to women every day, and banned women from the public, and banned and erased women from public life. Imagine that a woman is locked at home since morning to night, and there is no way to go because all women and all families and all girls don't have a male chaperone to leave the house every day. And for some of them, there is no reason and no means to have the opportunity and the permission to leave their house. And for education and working opportunities, that women don't have that. For that reason, there is no hope for women, no future for them. This is all these are the main reasons for a deep mental health crisis among women. And I'm sorry to say that, and I don't have I have no idea for the listener, but there is a high number of suicide attempts among Afghan people, specifically among women and girls. And for this reason, I joined a team with a high-level trainer to be trained to help women and girls with mental health support and to support them to consult them with their problems. And because this is very difficult situation, and every day we can hear that young girls are forced to get married at young age, and women have no future, no hope. So this is a very important issue, and
it's a really worrying issue, and I suppose particularly as well because if women are restricted from education, this issue is probably going to get worse in the sense that they're prevented then from becoming professionals like doctors, like counsellors, like psychotherapists, and women who can help and support other women. So eventually there'll be a massive gap there where women who do have issues, whether it's physical health issues or mental, really have nobody to turn to.
Yes, you are absolutely right. And when women are banned from studying, and eventually with this situation, there wouldn't be any female doctors and to help other women with their mental health crisis or with any other medical problems, because no one is allowed in Afghanistan to study, and the mental health crisis is going to worse day by day. And I mentioned this somewhere that there must be, I guess, the international community and the international law might have another term, which is gender genocide, because there's everyday women are losing their lives because of mental health problems, and they attempt to suicide. And I have many cases when I spoke with my clients for my support to mental health consultation.
Gosh, there's a real sense of urgency around that. That's really, really worrying. And just, I suppose, getting back to one of the core issues that I know you've been working on, and we do actually see a little bit more, I suppose, touched in the press and other publications on education. And that was one of the first things that the Taliban tackled when they introduced their oppressive regime back to over 2 years ago now. So just in terms of education, which is something that we do read about a little bit more frequently perhaps than the other areas that we're touching on. But what is the situation on the ground, Maryam, in terms of education? Is it a case that all girls and all women are banned from every aspect of education? I know the Taliban, through their oppressive regime, had started to phase out education. We're now in 2024. What does it look like for women and girls in terms of accessing any education formally?
Thank you so much for asking this important question. When Taliban took over in 2021, and they banned female students from attending to secondary school, and then in 2022, in December 2022, they banned female students from attending to universities. Mm-hmm. And today, Afghanistan is the only country on the earth, on the planet Earth, that female students cannot go to the secondary school and to the universities. Mm. And it means that in next 5 years, if the Taliban were in power, or 10 years, we won't have teachers, female teachers, female engineers, female, science-based, and many opportunities will take away from women and girls in my country.
Yeah, shocking.
Since they banned the schools and universities to women, with all of women's and humans and education rights activists, we tried our best and called on the regime. Also, the United Nations and all other international organizations called on the regime to open the doors of the schools and universities to women and let them learn. And we had many campaigns for that, but no pressure, and I believe none of the sanctions worked on the regime, and they did not open the schools and universities to women and girls. But I believe they did more dangerous thing towards women and girls, because they opened more madrasas in Afghanistan, and
that's of course the religious schools. Yeah.
Where a madrasa is a place where the Taliban themselves grew up there, religious school where they can teach their interpretation of their interpretation of Islamic law, which is none of them are the thing that we believe, and it is absolutely and definitely the Taliban's indoctrination, because one of my students is studying there, and because she says that I really didn't have any reason to leave home, and I couldn't stay at home, and I wanted to go out, and for this reason I'm joining, or I'm attending to this madrasas, and there they only memorize things, and they don't study any subjects like mathematics, chemistry, or English or computers. None of these subjects are taught there, but they study only Arabic subjects, which are not clear from which resources, and they only memorize everything, and they are asked to do this. They are asked to memorize the questions or the answers of the topics that the teachers or everyone gives them there. So it is absolutely indoctrination. It is. These places are places for growing terrorists. Which is
it's so shocking.
Very dangerous. Future of the country.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I mean, to me, hearing that, this poses even more of a danger for society as a whole in Afghanistan, as it seems there's an attempt to completely eradicate modern education, whether that's for men or women, young boys or girls, leaving a nation void of really essential skills. And this kind of ideology and teaching under, let's call it, I suppose, a Taliban curriculum, I guess, is impacting every aspect of life. And as we said, you know of some students who are attending those schools, those predominantly religious facilities, but also young boys and men who've progressed with learning and haven't been barred from going to school. This is the type of education that they're receiving, which is based on a kind of a regressive ideology at every level. So that's really worrying as well, aside from the gender apartheid issue and the banning of girls and women from education.
Yes, yes, you're right. And, all these students, male or female, who are studying in these madrasas and these kind of schools, they are the mothers and fathers of, they are future mothers and fathers. And they, when they grew up in these madrasas, and they will become another version of Taliban themselves, or like ISIS or any other group which is attacking on safety of humanity and in every part of the world.
It's really worrying, and it's a matter of urgency as this is really having widespread impact. Also, I know that a lot of men, fathers and brothers and male family members have been advocating publicly for the rights of their girls, their daughters, to attend school and to receive an education because they believe that this is vital and they stand against the regime. What happens to them? Are they at risk?
Yes, thank you. Alongside women and women's rights activists who were protesting and advocating for women's rights and education rights in Afghanistan, there are many other men who are standing and supporting women's rights, standing by women and supporting women's rights in Afghanistan, especially education rights. I can name some of them. One of them is Matiullah Vaisa, who is education rights activist for both male and female students, but after the Taliban took over, she more works and advocates for female students who are banned from the school, and he went to every villages across the country and talking with the fathers and the male members of families to gather and ask the regime to open the doors of schools for female students and creating the opportunities. Schools, small schools in the villages for girls, and also there are many of them, and of course the Taliban arrested him because in one of the interviews, the Minister of Higher Education mentioned that everyone who is demonstrating against the regime with their words, with their pens, and with their actions, they must be killed. And this is very dangerous, yes. And it's like warnings to everyone who is doing their work. So they arrested Matiullah Vaisa, and he has been in prison for several months, and now he is free. But there are two other education rights activists, Fahim and Sadiq, and last week the Amnesty International called on regime to for the immediate release of these education rights activists to be free as soon as possible.
Well, we touched there on, of course, men who are active and are obviously, appalled at the fact that their children and their family members are banned from education. But we cannot underestimate the power of Afghan women as it becomes imperative, more and more increasingly imperative for them to advocate for themselves and to assert their rights. And I mean, they're very brave to do so in what is an extremely oppressive regime. So I suppose my question is, I'm wondering, are women putting themselves at great risk when we know that protesting is banned, but they're still really using their voice in any way possible to assert their rights? What's your experience of this, and are women at risk when they do try to speak out?
With every restriction that this regime imposed on women, the women have protested for that, for right for education that is taken away from women and girls, for right to work, and for closing the beauty salon and every other restriction. And I believe that the protest doesn't have only, or fighting against the regime's cruel restriction doesn't have only one way and face. And I believe many women protest and fight in many different ways. For example, as myself, according to the situation that I had and that I have had, I started to teach. I started to teach and educate women and girls. It is just a sign of protesting against the regime. Another woman created an opportunity for women and girls to, create a work opportunity. For example, open a small home restaurant and to create opportunity for women to work there, or someone opened a sewing workshop, or everyone is thinking of a way to protest. And we have extraordinary brave women who protesting at the streets. And you know that there are a lot of reports and videos on social media that the regime, the intelligence of the regime tracked them and arrested them, and they have been in the prison for several months, and they have been tortured and beaten. And after many efforts of UN and international organizations, they have been released. And this is why I believe that protest doesn't have only one way and one face, and women are doing and risking their life every day, and just to demonstrate that the regime's beliefs and restrictions are not according to their beliefs, and they demonstrate against that.
Yeah. Gosh. And I mean, everything's just taken such a massive step back when we think that, a lot of areas, including women, were really at a really progressive level. It had been built back up after the 90s, when it was a really dark time for women. And, for example, one of the great disappointments was for women who had been able to enter governmental positions and become representatives. The Ministry of Women's Affairs was changed to the Ministry of Vice and Virtue by the Taliban, which is really an attempt to stop women from entering government at any level. So that's, again, another massive step back, which I'm sure, cost women their livelihoods, which feeds into, of course, their mental health because they're not able to be employed. So it just really shows that every single aspect of life has been targeted, from education to employment to mental health, which is really just shocking. Just one area in particular that we might look at is that of lawyers. You're a lawyer yourself, an activist lawyer. But we have had previous guests on before talking about female lawyers from Afghanistan who were able to be evacuated after August 2021 through various programs. Some were judges and prosecutors. Now, just to stay with Afghanistan, there still are, from what I can see, real dangers in place for judges and prosecutors who no longer work, and they could be female or male, but we'll focus on women who were immediately suspended from their jobs or prevented from working, and a real risk was posed to them because they would have prosecuted criminals that the Taliban later released. What is the situation for women lawyers in Afghanistan at the moment? I mean, I'm guessing none of them are working, am I correct?
I really appreciate asking this question, because this is in the area of my expertise, because you mentioned that, and we all know that female lawyers, I mean judges, prosecutors, and attorneys, they are not allowed. They are no longer allowed to work. Female judges and prosecutors, I can say the majority of them were evacuated to other countries to safety, and female lawyers, they are remained in Afghanistan. They are not only didn't evacuate it, and they remained, and they are not able to practice. When the new regime took over, and they didn't accept none of the former government judges and prosecutors, nor female, neither male, and none of them are working because they don't have the qualification that they are assigned to do to work as a judge and to work as a prosecutor, and they are in the justice system of the country.
Yeah.
About female lawyers, I have a lot of colleagues and female lawyers colleagues that they were trying, and they reached out to the court system and to the courts in Afghanistan in different provinces, and try to ask the regime to give them the permission to work. But one of the stories which is very heartbreaking and interesting I want to share is one of these lawyers that I know told me that she went to the court and asked that I'm the only breadwinner of my family, and this is the only job that I had before the former government collapsed, and I need to work, and allow me to work and practice and to help other women. But they asked her, "Are you single or married?" And then she didn't know what to say, and she said that I'm single. And then the Taliban judge told her that you can write a letter and apply, something like that, and write an application and send it to their leader. They call him Amirul Mominin, and ask him that to marry you with one of Taliban fighters, and then at that time you can have a source of income, and you don't need to practice as a lawyer, and you don't need to leave your house. This is very heartbreaking,
Goodness.
Because it is not only for allowing the lawyer for working, it is for supporting and advocating all those women who are brave enough to file their complaints in the court of the Taliban court, because everyone who is in Afghanistan, they all know that no women are allowed to enter to the court alone without a male chaperone, and they must be accompanied with a man. And if the cases about domestic violence or violence that happened in the family by their fathers, brothers, and husbands, the decision is 100% for the benefit of the man, and they don't listen to the women. They don't see them, and they ignore them completely. And for this reason, we need it, and our society, all these women need female lawyers to advocate for them, but they are not allowed. And imagine that how many cases that are there that there is no one to support women, and they lose their rights, and they experience more violation and abuse because of this kind of system.
Yeah. It's absolutely, I mean, the international legal community should be outraged by this. Let's just step back a little bit. So to get it very clear, because this is really, really worrying. Not only have women and girls had their education stopped, especially, at various levels, and those who were about to qualify or about to become lawyers. Those who were lawyers were at extreme risk and either evacuated the country, which is of course not ideal either. At least they're safe, but that's not what they would have wanted. lawyers are no longer allowed, women cannot work as lawyers under any circumstances. The Taliban have introduced their own judiciary, which puts women at grave risk. And I mean, there seems to be, I can't imagine a judiciary or an establishment in place like that. It just seems to be crumbling. And while I see that the International Bar Association appears to have been very active in terms of reaching out to those within the legal profession in Afghanistan, I mean, has that been effective? And what more can the legal community do? I understand that there are women judges in the UK and in Ireland who are working and have been taken into positions where they can start to study again here. But really, what can they do and what can we do to change what's happening? Is there anything in terms of outreach that the international community can do to stop this and to highlight this issue? Because I don't think a lot of people are aware of it.
I would ask to speak about this issue, speak about women and girls in Afghanistan, to write to your MPs and your governor and everywhere that you are, and that anyone who is willing to help. Speak about women. Don't forget about women and girls and their situation in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. I can address to the racial apartheid in South Africa, and it ended eventually by the local effort and international community's support, and with all women's rights and education rights and human rights activists, we are doing our best and we are working every day, and we are trying to raise awareness, being the voice of millions of women and girls in the country, and to and ask for stopping the gender apartheid in Afghanistan. But we need your support and the international community's support, because we women, we Afghan women inside and outside of the country, we are fighting, and not only for our rights, and not only for Afghan women's rights, but for rights of every woman in every part of the world. Yeah. Because we cannot let the oppression and extremism win. Mm-hmm. If today we give up on our rights, and then more women will experience our situation, and in every other part of the world. Yeah. And we are fighting for every woman in every other woman in across the globe. And we need your support now.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was focusing there on women lawyers, but really we all need to be vocal in terms of every aspect that's affecting women and girls in Afghanistan, because everything leads into one thing leads into the other. So really there, from an individual point of view, we can be active around contacting our MPs and making sure that this is our members of parliament, whatever country we're in, and making sure that this issue remains on the table. There have been some very vocal politicians, I know, within the UK and within Ireland that have kept issues on the table. But really, Is it a sense, I suppose I should ask this, it's my opinion, but are the issues affecting women and girls in Afghanistan receiving less attention, do you think, as people kind of move on from the situation? Is it something that we need to reignite in terms of getting people's attention focused on it?
I believe so. I believe that media and the discussions and the attention move on from the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan. Because no one can even imagine that it is more than 2 years that we all are locked in prison, and no one. I have no idea how to say that, because if one day if it was in the former government, if one day we something happened and we couldn't follow our schedule and our programs for daily and weekly. It was very difficult and we were sad, but Can you imagine that it is more than 2 years that no woman and girls are able to study. They cannot work. They don't have any source of income. They are not allowed to have fun. Every day starts in the 4 walls of the house, and it finishes there. Mm-hmm. And it is really heartbreaking, and it is unbearable. And if the attention and the topics of today's world news was Afghanistan, I believe that something would happen earlier and not waiting to pass 2 years or more than 2 years. And I have no idea how much more we will be in this prison like this.
Yeah.
And this is really heartbreaking, and this is very disappointing. I give the right for women who have mental health problems to have disappointed with their futures, because it has been more than 2 years and there's no hope that it will change in I don't know, with coming months or years, and this is heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, it's relentless. I think the Taliban's persecution, which is what it is, of women and girls in particular, is absolutely relentless. And from what I can see, the International Criminal Court and anybody tasked with investigating, and prosecuting individuals who are responsible and clearly responsible for these crimes, it's just not enough. Nothing is being done at that level at the moment that will have any real impact. So maybe there's a call for pressure there as well from people to ensure that their governments are taking action, just like we're seeing at the moment with the International Court of Justice. But finally, Maryam, the Taliban's persecution of women and girls is clearly relentless. What we're hearing and what we're witnessing, and I'm sure we're not hearing half of what's happening, but thankfully with people like yourself who have been brave enough to step out and let us on the outside know what's happening. What, I suppose, given that it's relentless and you're living it at the moment, what hopes do you have? What would you call on people to do? And what are your expectations of the international community?
When we are talking about having hope for the future, when I or when other women are inside of Afghanistan, it seems there is no hope. But I say that I hope that the international community recognize the gender apartheid in Afghanistan that is happening in Afghanistan, the crimes against humanity, the crimes against women that is happening in Afghanistan under this regime. I have heard that all people, all individuals are innocent, and unless someone or unless a prosecutor prove that, that person, that man or woman is a criminal and must be punished. But today, as a woman who I'm living in this situation under this tyrant regime, I can say that this regime acts and behaves towards women like all women are criminals, unless they prove that they are not. And recently, you might hear that if women are arrested only for the excuse or for having improper hijab, even though they wear black hijab and they wear black mask, but they are arrested and they are detained and they are tortured and raped and beaten. And there are many reports on this that people say that they and confirm that all these are happening on women in prison. Yeah. I hope that the international community do something for women and girls in Afghanistan before it gets too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, Maryam, I mean, for me, it's been personally just a privilege and an honour to talk to you. I've learned so much from you over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure our listeners will appreciate what you're doing and the bravery that you and your colleagues, the women and the girls in Afghanistan who are not taking this regime lying down, they are standing up as best they can with whatever resources they can to try and continue their education and to try and put this issue at the fore of the international community, because it is so vital and important that this is addressed, as you say, before it's too late. So I just really want to thank you so much for giving me your time and for discussing these issues that you're living through with our listeners. It's just been a real privilege. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and I'm so happy to be here and talk to you and be the voice of millions of other women and girls and talk about the situation that we are living. Thank you.
Thank you, Maryam. Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you like the show, please remember to share and leave a review if you have a moment. And you can also check out our website, www.activistlawyer.com, where you will see some blog articles written by our guests and contributors, as well as some fabulous Activist Lawyer merchandise.
This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.